First, in this video, I want to talk about tools, functions that we give to the model as a harnessing for the model to be able to use these and generate meaningful, powerful outcomes. So you can think about tools as, if we think about LLMs as driver in a car, the map, gasoline, is basically tools that we give to the LLM to empower it to go where it needs to go faster. And I mean, let's actually take a look at this from the perspective of Claude Code before diving into gear. As an example, a tool can be web search, right? We let the model to do web search. As a user, we might give the model a URL and want it to just go check and take a look at certain lines or certain subtitles of the page. It could be fetch. I mean, you can search the web and you can also fetch the web. Most of the time, fetching is very important because you don't want to fetch all the contents of the HTML content on a URL, because that will be a nightmare for the models because they have limited context window. I'm not even talking about like the bare content. Even in the bare content, if the user wants to know, for example, in this page, let's say how to use web page, I only want the model to fetch this part, right? To put that into its context, because that's what it needs to answer that question. I don't want it to go fetch everything related to this page, which will be 20 times more tokens, right? So not only HTML content, which usually you would see here, right? And this is nightmare. Like, you don't want, like, here, like if you put this into context, this is basically all the context is full now. So, let's take a look at the other tool examples. We can have memory tool. I never heard about that, to be honest. That's conversations through a memory file directory. Okay, so as it turns out that it keeps or picks certain memory within the context, it puts into file in the feature in order to call recall. It sounds good. We got bash tool, which allows the model to write bash terminal code, which actually is going to bring us here. So usually there's this debate people will discuss. So we can have different read, write, edit, glob, grep tools, right? And these all can be done with bash. What I mean with that is you don't have to write a function for read, because you can basically, just do cat, right? Cat allows you to read a file in bash. You can just say test.txt. This basically would return the test.txt, the content of test.txt. And in order to write, you can just do, as simple as a little bit. You can just do this to a test.txt, right? This would write that to test.txt. Obviously, there are details you can append, you can rewrite the test.txt. We're not really talking about that. But even here, you see the, like, it's not that, these are very simple bash commands. Usually the models are very capable of bringing more sophisticated bash commands. But writing on the bash command has a lot of problems, and we will come to that. Not all the problems, but incapabilities and unreliability. The reason why we need to write files, specific files, one is security. So when we write edit file, read file, write file, what we can do is we can check the path, because you're basically giving path as a parameter to these functions. Now we have more control over the path. What we can do is we can check what kind of path the model is trying to read. We can sandbox the model into its own project folder, basically, right? And the reliability part is, most of the time you will realize, you will also give this as an example in the coding exercise or in the coding phase. So the model is, one of the things that, I would guess that as well, is that the model brings all the context into its, like, let's say memory with the cat tool, for example, right? It can read everything. However, a lot of the time you want the model to recall, to bring certain parts of these memory. So if you want to bring all the to-do lines, right, in a coding file where we kind of left some to-do tasks, if I want to bring all of them into a file and want the model to do this, the model will first read whole file and try to remember then, recall them. So what does that do? Well, models might not have problem with that if it is a couple of, but if it is like 50, the model will hallucinate, probably. And in my experience, the model has hallucinated the line number, not necessarily the content, but the line number of to-do that was replaced in the file. So it has a reliability problem because with functions, we have better sophisticated deterministic way of doing things. And we can enable the model to do that, basically. It's especially for very simple things, reading, writing, editing files. And capability comes also, well, there like the way that you are able to do line limits or like these different way of looking at files within certain offset limits, lines. It becomes like very complicated bash command if the model wants to do that in bash. And the model has to one-shot that. If it fails, probably you might try again, which again is not something that you want because now you're kind of losing a lot of tokens and the model's capabilities in that phase, and so on. So let's take a look at this actually in coding. So here, this part basically describes or displays the loop where we add prompt, the model decides to call a tool, gets a result, and this loop continues. And here we will give a simple example. And this is a safe path that we can use to working directory. And here you see that safe path is actually, let's take a look at where did safe path is being used. So we have the run bash tool, which allows the model to run bash. We have run read. As you can see, we now, because we are giving the path as an input, we can first check the path, which is a good example of using this. If it's, the safe path does basically this. Checks the path, the current working directory, and then if it's not relative to this working directory, it throws an error, basically, right? With sandboxing the model, we're limiting the model's capabilities to this project folder, which is this folder. Let me actually close that as well. Yep. So we did that for read, write, and edit. And what I want to do now is take a look at this tool calls. How do we define the tools? And basically we have these handlers, right, where we define the tool calls that will allow us to call the tool that's been requested by the model to be called. And here the model, this list will be given to model for the model to have more idea about these tools. So now I'll make a couple of examples here to display why tools matter. So let's now comment these three and ask something the model. Let's see if the model it will attempt to do that or not. Okay, let's see this. Let's run the code here. Okay, so the code is run. So let's actually tell the model to read something from, let's just do this. Code the path. Please list the files in this folder. Yeah, I kind of listed that. It's fine. What happens? Okay, so we gave this task, plus list the files in this folder, and it listed them. Right, so, okay, demo project, I'm trying to figure out this is correct. Doesn't really sound correct.
Okay, got it. I think it's, I don't know, what is this?
Anyway, that's not important. So you got the answers, right? But this project folder might not be something that we want the model to reach, because maybe there are like certain files, folders that kind of keeping it secure. If we allow these tools, right? So what I will do now is tell the model to read this file. Copy path. Okay, let's rerun the project. Please read this file. String is file. So as you can see, it got an error. It's still okay. Okay, this is funny because it managed to. I mean, this is not a like production level sandboxing, but you see that it got the error.
But somehow the path is outside my workspace.
Let me try reading from the current working directory ads here.
Okay, what I did, I'm kind of confused here.
Okay.
Somehow it was able to read, but it first got the error. We can see that.
I don't know in the second time how did it find a way to write it.
Maybe it used, okay, it used bash. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, in the first function, in the first call, it used read file. Because it did use read file, it wasn't able to get it. But the model is smart enough to call bash instead, because we're not doing that check for bash.
Bash is not really that doesn't really have any
File checked, right? Because it's just a bunch of comments that the model throws out edits. Doesn't Yeah, it's just a comment. It's just pass comment. We're not really controlling the path, let's say. Because that's the first like showcase. It didn't really work because the model had the ability to use bash. So for that reason, it didn't work. So let's actually run a couple of interesting functions and give that as an ability to the model. So what are those? Well, these will be grep and glob. You will find these, if you're using clock code, you will see them all the time. So basically run glob is, it takes a path, a route, could be just current project folder, and it gets a pattern for the file, and then it lists through all the files that's under our root path. And this glob is actually default function that already path library has. And it just checks all the files that matches the pattern. That's it. So as an example, if we give this, right?
all right, and that's correct. So
This will basically give us all the files that is Python, all the Python files. Okay, so and the grep is
they have more parameters, as you can see. The two of them are
has to be given, and the two others are, let's say, optional. So here we are looking at files, but not all the files. We're looking at a text pattern within files. So the example I gave in the beginning, if we want to look at the TODOs in our file, in a file that we want to inspect, let's say that here, this example file has to do, right? So there are a lot of to-dos here, and we might want the model to look at them because we just want to actually work on them. And that's why you would use grep. Let's now also define the handlers by the way. Couple of details here. If we don't make this additional star parameter, this basically returns the none, and none is given to here file pattern, and that returns nothing because we're looking at nothing, right? We're looking for nothing pattern. That returns emptiness. I mean, not emptiness. In our case, it's just no matches found. So let's change that right away. Right back. Right. So, and same thing for in our case as well. Let's also define the tools as well. Full description. Before doing that, actually, without defining the tools, I want to try something. Okay. So I want to tell the model, okay, give me all the to-dos in demo underscore project. Give me all the to-do. Okay. Give me all the to-do. Okay, this is now what's going on. I think it's because of my keyboard. Give me all the to-dos under demo underscore project folder. Within files. Let's just give that. So without grep, we'll see how it handles. Okay, so what it did is it calls finds on a project. And as you can see, like, this is crazy. Like, it literally written all the file patterns and tried to catch all the file patterns. And then, okay, so it also returned fix me's. Oh, wait a second. Oh, this is crazy, man. Okay, so that's fine, actually. I can return the fix me's. Okay, so it says that there are 170 to-dos here. It also counted them. We didn't ask for it, but there are no 170 to-dos here. There might be, actually, now I think about it, but that's not the point. Anyway, the model now had to read all the tools here, all the files here, which is like massive, right? So there are a lot of things here. Like these are just massive files. It just had to read all of them, put them into its context, and rely on its context, which is like, it's just nightmare. So as now, I haven't like deep checked these, but I'm pretty sure most of them wrong. Like, it should be okay because we just started the context, but think about this down the line in 100,000 contexts. So it's just nightmare. And you can see this is a big project. It's not even big actually, relative to a lot of projects. But imagine you have like
a lot of folders and files. The model has to read all of them and needs to recall its context, which is like, oh god, it's just a terrible way of reading, like using their tokens, first of all. You can just do this with function, right? With the function, with a computer software function. Now that's what we're gonna do now. We're just gonna make these way easier for us. Alright, so let's now add that. Now the model has the functionality, right? We don't have to change anything here because we're basically passing the tools to the model right here. And we added the tools here. Okay, so let's now check this one. Alright, so please all to TODOs under demo underscore project within every file. Let's see now how does the model handles this. Okay, it did use grep. Okay, so it went to this file config settings.ini. It found 15 TODOs. Didn't return all of them. We could have, I mean, print them, print please. No, it doesn't have the context. Now it's gonna tell us what you're talking about because it doesn't know the history. Oh, it does have, because we're in the while loop. We keep iterating. Did it have context? Yes, it did have context. Sorry. Okay, so it took a while. But as you can see, it very correctly returned all the files with the to-dos. They don't really return fix me's, right? Like in the previously, we were relying on the memory. In our case, this is like very programmatic way of returning that because we literally using the program, right? Recursive file, taking a look at each line by line and so on. So as you can see, we checked the security, which is a big deal. We checked the reliability. The initial example wasn't really reliable, and it's just like terrible way of using your agent and using your tokens. It's terrible. Like if you're doing this, like this is not good. And grep and glob is just like perfect tools. And like I always see it in Cloud Code. Cloud Code is just massively taking advantage of those functions. And it's way capable. It's just crazy capable. And it's just like very easy tools. When look at this. Like it's just 15 lines of code. It's not even 15 lines of code, it's just 5 lines of code. So that was it. I mean, we took a look at functions, why are they important? And we took a look at them from security perspective, which is very important. Reliability perspective, why important? And the capability perspective, and how important tools are for large language models for them to be agent, right? Okay, so that was it. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next one.